From shooting someone on Fifth Avenue to refusing a debate podium spot if a certain female news commentator is asking the questions, guess who once again managed to own the political weekend? 7 days from Iowa without talking about issues. The issue on the left is watching President Obama dance his way into now backing Hillary Clinton and taking shots at Bernie Sanders. And that feeling of panic that seems to be getting a little deeper every day in the camp of the Democrats' favorite home emailer. 1 week from today, they will be lining up in Iowa to caucus. So how many of you know what a caucus actually is, what goes on at one of these meetings, and why in the name of impassable country roads anybody would want to be a part of it? And let's discuss what one motion picture should be doing to our national anger when it comes to one word: Benghazi. Begin the week with common sense, no knee-jerk, and coming in issues straight down the middle. I'm Ed Berliner. This is The Hardline for Monday, January the 25th, 2016.
Very distressed by the level of inflammatory rhetoric, hateful, mean-spirited rhetoric in our political campaign. It has real consequences. It really does fuel more of the same from people who are attracted to that out of their frustration, their anger, their disappointment, whatever their reasons might be to try to latch on to some kind of quick and easy scapegoating and finger pointing to explain what's going on in the world today.
To call what's happening in the Republican Party at the moment a civil war is somewhat historically and literally inaccurate. While a civil war is between two groups within the same state or country, the duel between long-standing conservatives and the Tea Party can be designated as such, but there's more to it than that. And anybody who tells you otherwise has no clue as to what's really going on. When the despised Democratic president of the United States says the vision of the current GOP is quote-unquote unrecognizable, and you have a good number of solid Republicans quietly agreeing it's not a civil war, it's closer to insurrection, something the GOP has to settle quickly, because here comes Iowa and the run of November beginning in earnest in just 7 days. Let's dig into the bunkers and understand the battle then. No one understands it better than the former Deputy Assistant to Vice President Dick Cheney and current Republican political strategist Ron Christie. And we're also joined by adjunct professor at Columbia University and author of The Trumps: 3 Generations of Builders and a Presidential Candidate, Gwenda Blair. I want to thank you both for joining us. And Ron, let me say hi to you, and let me begin with you. This New York Times article calling the Republican vision unrecognizable. Is it just possible, Ron, that as much as the Republicans want to say absolutely not, the president's got a point here, and it's something that the Republicans have got to work on right now, because here, as I said, comes Iowa, and they've got to settle this rift?
Well, good evening, Ed. This is a historic opportunity for the Republicans right now to right their ship and to, frankly, undo a lot of the damage we've seen for these past 8 years of a failed administration. The Republicans have this opportunity because they have had no higher level of folks in the House of Representatives since the Civil War. In other words, people put the brakes on the Obama administration, said we're taxing too much, we're spending too much, and we're not doing enough to stimulate the economy. So rather than getting a circular firing squad, Ed, I think the Republicans need to focus on their conservative vision, how they would move the country forward, and then take on the eventual nominee rather than shooting at themselves.
Well, let's get to it this way, too, because President Obama told this initially to Politico. And here's a quote that I picked out of this. John McCain was a conservative, but he was well within, the mainstream of not just the Republican Party, but within our political dialogue, unquote. Ron, is it not just possible, though, that political dialogue, that the mainstream is changing and needs to change in order to get the Republican Party to where it needs to be? People will say, stop, Ron, we've got to change or else we lose.
Yes, Ed, I think we do need to change, and I think we do need to get back towards the mainstream. But where is that mainstream? I would argue that mainstream has said that we've spent too much, we've done far too little for our economic survival in this country, and putting forth common growth plans. So in other words, John McCain, what did he do? Well, he got along kind of with President Obama. Was Mitt Romney aggressive enough about going after the president's record? Well, perhaps maybe not. So when you're looking at that mainstream, I think Republican voters want a fighter, someone who's going to challenge the president rather than just acquiesce for his remaining 11 months in office.
Ms. Blair, let me bring you into this because you understand the Trumps better than most. You have followed them. You have written about them. The book that you've authored certainly looks into Donald Trump and looks into the making, as we said, of a president here. One of the people that the president, Obama, is talking about at this time is Donald Trump, basically talking about the frustration and the anger. Now, there are a lot of people who are angry after this weekend because in Iowa on Saturday, Donald Trump made quite the remark, saying that his supporters would stick with him even if he committed a cold-blooded murder. Here's what he said.
They say, I have the most loyal people. Did you ever see that? Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
Is it not fair to say, though, Ms. Blair, that this may not be mean-spirited, it may not be evil at all? This is how Donald Trump works. He doesn't do anything by mistake. It is well planned, and he knows exactly the kind of emotion that he's reaching for.
Absolutely. His business success, his trademark, everything he's done has been based on his ability to read an audience. He's really good at it. He really targets his audience. He knows what they want to hear, whether it's they want a fancy apartment that tells the world that they're rich, or it's somebody who's angry, who wants somebody who's going to go after a target, someone to blame for why they're not getting what they want out of life, why they think they're not getting the jobs they want, they're not getting the respect they want. Donald Trump is really good at knowing what an audience wants to hear and delivering it.
Do you think that he knows when he goes too far, or would he listen to somebody in his inner circle who would tell him, Mr. Trump, you need to back off and not go there?
He's a hands-on guy. He's not a delegator, and that inner circle is mighty small. He goes with his gut. He doesn't have a circle of advisors that's very large anyway. He certainly hasn't in the past. And he doubles down, but that's part of his trademark, is not backing off. His family, the fortune is built on never giving up, never backing down, double down, don't back down. And that's what, and he's made that a trademark and something that, again, makes his, in this case, voters or the audience, makes them loyal to him because they know the message he's giving is that he's not going to back away. And so, right down to murdering somebody on Fifth Avenue, let's assume that was hyperbole. He's absolutely right. He does have a very loyal base.
You would certainly hope it's hyperbole. Let's say that. Ron, I saw you nodding your head a little bit here, but let me talk about going too far again, and this now from a strategy standpoint. Donald Trump's campaign manager, we featured it on Newsmax.com, is telling people that they will not appear at the debate this week if Fox's Megyn Kelly is there as part of the panel. They say they may even go and have their own town hall. Strategy side, Ron, good or bad move?
Bad mistake, bad move, Ed. Look, if you want to be the president of the United States and the leader of the free world, you have to be able to be in a position to sit on a stage and let Megyn Kelly ask you some questions. If Donald Trump can't handle Megyn Kelly, then it makes me wonder not whether he can handle Vladimir Putin. Can he handle a lot of the real difficult aspects of the job? So it makes him look petulant, it makes him look small, and it makes him look as, of course, he has a glass jaw, rather than for everything he said about his being a winner and his being a strong leader and he knows how to negotiate, he's proving his critics correct when they say he just can't take it unless he gets everything his way all the time.
Ms. Blair, does Donald Trump fear anybody?
I think it's this his latest bit about not wanting to appear on Fox if Megyn Kelly's asking the questions. You could also say that his gamble is to show that he can get what he wants. And he's got networks. He's got a lot of folks over a barrel. When in all those bankruptcies that he had, these famous 4 corporate bankruptcies, he had his lenders over a barrel. They didn't want to take his name off of his buildings, so they were forced to take a haircut that they didn't extend to much of anybody else. And again, now he's got a lot of politicians, news commentators, the media kind of over a barrel. Is Fox going to like go up against him and insist on Megyn Kelly? We'll see. But I think his gamble is to show that he can push a button and get what he wants.
I think you've just brought up the last point here to Ron Christie. Ron, I got a little less than a minute to go. Isn't it fair to say that if you look at Fox, Roger Ailes isn't going to back down, and if he backs down, he loses a lot of face. Do you expect Fox at any time to say, we acquiesce, Mr. Trump?
Absolutely not. I expect that Roger Ailes will tell Megyn Kelly and the rest of the folks, Brett Baer, who will be seated on that stage, and Chris Wallace, to do your job, to ask the tough questions, to make the candidates focus on very clear and concise answers, but to suggest that Donald Trump will somehow be able to remove Megyn Kelly from that stage and to silence her, in essence, because of his petulance and his past questioning with her. It makes you wonder, perhaps, to the previous question you asked, is he afraid of anybody? Sounds to me like he's afraid of Megyn Kelly.
Which is exactly what some of his distractors would say at this point, because I got to tell you, Ron, there's an old saying I've always lived by. If you want to play lumberjack, learn to handle your end of the log. And this is
That's right.
this is the end of the log right now for Donald Trump. Let's see where it goes and where he falls and how this falls. Ron, always a pleasure to see you. Gwenda Blair, I want to thank you so much for joining us. I certainly hope we get a chance to talk again. Now, everybody talks about the Iowa caucus. But hands up from those who really understand what goes on in those meetings. Allow us to keep it simple. We'll answer the questions. Let us go ahead and we'll caucus a little bit and let you know. It's all coming up next, right here on The Hard Line.